like to call to order the Avalon City Council meeting of August 15th. And if we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. The Pledge of Allegiance will be completed by Gabriella Lang, who is here visiting her grandparents, and her daddy's in the audience. So if you would please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Gabriella. And if we would stand just for a moment, I'd like to take a few moments for us to remember the 3 casualties in Virginia over the last weekend. Lieutenant H.J. Cullen, Trooper Pilot Burke, M.M. Bates, 32-year-old pedestrian Heather Heyer, she's 26 years old. That was a result of the pro-white demonstration in Virginia. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the families, and let us take a moment to remember them. Please be seated. And Denise, may we have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Cassidy.
Here.
Councilmember Hernandez.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Olson.
Here.
Mayor Marshall.
Here.
And for the record, there's an excused absence for Councilmember Sampson.
Are there any announcements or written communications?
I heard there was an email from a resident regarding a few of the items on the agenda, but I did not see it, so I can't tell you what items it was concerning.
I'll forward it to you.
Great.
City manager report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have a few items. One is an update on the Vaughn's project. The Director of Planning received information regarding the status of that project. Vaughan says that they are dealing, of course, with the neighbors through CISA on an agreement that they've had a review of it, and they are redrafting the document for final review and hopefully approval by CISA. Also, it was pointed out to them that their property is in need of cleanup. I was assured we're assured by Sam Schenk with their real estate department that they will take care of that right away. They also said that they were preparing to secure the entire site, but they gave no start date on the project. I did want to mention, Mayor, something I know you were aware of in the council, that Supervisor Janice Hahn is proposing and proposed today that the county make improvements to the Avalon Library, and she has encouraged the board to support her request. I didn't hear the outcome of that, but I have confidence, as you do, in her. The City of Avalon will assist her and county staff with an outreach effort to ensure that opinions from the Avalon community about what is needed at the library are considered. And I know that you all and we appreciate her support for improvements and her desire to hear from the community. I did want to mention also, I did meet with the Chamber Chief Executive, Jim Lujahan, last week, or it was a few days before that, about the status of Wi-Fi. And the Chamber is going to host, along with the cable company, a public information meeting, and particularly with those people who in the commercial sector who have hotels and so on, to discuss what can be done short-term, what they can do as a company now with the hotels, and what long-term is needed to increase the usability, I guess is the word, of Wi-Fi. Thank you, Mayor.
City Attorney report.
Yeah, I've placed on the dais for each one of the council members. This will also be available for the public if anyone wants. Just a brief letter from the Corolla engineers. As you recall, the Corolla had done an analysis of what we thought they would recommend for desalination, which was new wells and some rehab of the desalination plant, as well as increased storage. Edison then did its own studies came to the same result, but with different types of storage, and they also came up with costs. So we asked Corolla to look at that. In their letter, they indicate that again they agree with the storage, the both concepts of the well rehabilitation, more work on the desal as well as storage, and that the cost estimates that Corolla gave are consistent with those that Edison provided, with the exception that Corolla's didn't have a lot of the added contingency fees. So the hard cost is the same of construction, but the difference that Edison's prices were much significantly higher than the Corolla's were, that because Corolla didn't have as many contingencies as Edison did. But again, this is consistent with what the city's always said. Our view has been you have the ability with your existing plant, if you have wells, and both plants are working to take care of the water situation in Apple. Right? And that's all I have, other than if you're on the mainland, be careful driving, because my daughter just passed her driver's test about 2 hours ago. So it's a scary thought.
She's going to be in another state.
Yeah,
right?
she's only, well, yes. She leaves on Thursday for another state. So people in Tennessee, look out.
Thank you. Council member reports.
I'm quick. You want me to go?
Please.
I attended the Gateway Cities Council of Government and Transportation Committee meeting. I believe that was the 3rd of August after our last council meeting. And Oli, for this week, do I report this week? Next week's? Okay. And then I was wondering if we could get an update for the community on our falconry program, how that's going. I actually saw the birds flying around the other day. I've seen them actually frequently around town, and then I saw that there's an event happening, I want to say, with maybe the Catalina Island Foundation, that they're doing a falconry event or whatnot, which is really exciting. But now that we're kind of getting towards the end of summer, if we could just get an update on what the situation with bird abatement with the particular birds would be great. And that's all I have.
Perfect. Just see, we got some information I was going to bring up about public restroom signage around town. I've had a couple of people ask me about it, so I thought I'd bring it up. We could post some clear signage around or where they're at, the nearest restrooms, because there doesn't seem to be too much signage around to give people direction or where to go to the restroom. And there's different restrooms, and we have them on the pier, we have them on the mold. But some people need to get to them as soon as possible. So if we could get some better signage for that, that would be well accepted within the city.
Council member, per your earlier inquiry, we are looking currently at signage in the office, and not just looking at it, but looking at where locations would be, where we could post signs for visitors. Most of us locally know, but
Correct.
It's our visitors who really need to know where those facilities, and we are certainly, that is in process right now.
Okay.
Does the chamber have an app that shows where everything is?
I
No,
don't know.
Not yet.
like city parks, we don't either. We're city parks.
But
and
I
all
believe
those
on the
stuff.
pocket map, I do believe the pocket map from the chamber has the bathrooms noted on it. I'm pretty sure the pocket map does, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But that's a printed copy.
Right. Okay.
And that's it for me.
Mayor Potem?
Nothing too exciting, except I will be attending the Contract Cities Board of Directors meeting tomorrow night in LA someplace. That's it.
I went to the Southern California Division of the League of California Cities installation dinner on 8/3, and Miguel Canales from Artesia is the new president of that. That was lovely. There were some people from Christine Guerrero, the League of California Cities people were there. Met our representative for the AQMD. She's a new lady, Tina somebody. So anyway, that was good. The food was good. I also met with Erlinda Chico that day for Supervisor Hahn's office, and she gave us the list of a lot of the new staff people the environmental people, the transportation people, all the new people that are involved, because they're still getting organized since they've only been in business since January. But they've got a lot of good people out there, and I gave all the information to the city manager. On the 17th, I'm going to Long Beach to meet with Reagan Ramali, the new president of Long Beach City College. And I'm going to be, if you have other ideas, things you want me to talk with her about, it's about industrial arts. It's about maybe having better communication and more recruitment of kids to Long Beach City College, because most of the kids want to go to Huntington Beach. And they go to Orange Coast College, they last a semester, and then they don't seem to make it, a lot of them. So if they could do some kind of a mentoring program perhaps to make it almost, because we're almost like foreign exchange students in that, they don't, public transportation, there's a lot the young people don't know. And they have a large industrial arts program, and I personally am one who believes that, and I think we've all discussed it, the need for the arts and our kids to be trained as electricians, mechanics, plumbers, and that kind of thing. We're going to talk about that a little bit, probably talk about a naturalization course, any other courses that could maybe be offered up here, either telecommunicative or in person with some of their professors. So, well, I'm sure we'll have a good dialogue there. And I forget the date. It's either the 20th or the 21st. Jim Luchahan we've been talking about for a couple of years about an arts council, and so he's organizing that for the 20th or 21st of September. The community will be invited. We'd like all the artists, visual arts, music, musicians, all the arts folks, and anybody that's interested in that in participating. I think the lunch will be $20. It's from 11:30 to 1:30. But again, I'm not sure if it's on the 20th or what's that? On the 20th. So that's very exciting, and we invite the community to attend. And I just have a question, and maybe we can ask Southern California Edison. Maybe somebody knows the answer. How is it that the reservoir, it got another 7 acre feet?
Water's still running.
I don't know. Water.
With all the people using water
Still running the diesel.
and running the diesel, I mean, that's,
You go to Cottonwood, there's water running down Cottonwood. Still.
yeah. But it's kind of crazy. It's kind of good crazy. It's good kind of crazy. So I don't know if people are still conserving, I'm sure. Anyway, well, if that's the answer, we don't need Edison to report. Thank you, Willie.
Madam Mayor, could I forgot one thing, may I?
Yes, please.
Council member Sampson, when he called me and said that he was unable to attend, he wanted to offer his sincere apology. He is unable to attend for good reason. And so I would imagine the record would express that he is excused because of there's no way he could be here tonight.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you very much. That's good. Okay, oral communication. This is off.
Excuse me, Mayor, may I just comment on a couple things?
Yes,
I
please.
provided council with two different documents today. One was a memo regarding the Yellow Jacket control. I guess you had asked for an update on that. I wanted to make sure you knew the contract was ongoing. And there's a graph there depicting how the increase in the Yellow Jackets are. Even today, speaking to them in the last, since my last report, we're going to be surprised by how many they've been capturing. And anyway, I'll have a copy of that at the front counter for anybody if they wanted to see it. The second thing that I provided to you was just a summary of how many vehicles have been booted since we started the program on April 18th, a total of 43 of them. 19 have been made street legal, 10 have been shipped off the island, and 7 removed by the city because they've been abandoned or vandalized, and then there's still some that have boots on them, and then we ran out of boots, so. Anyway, the program's working, and code's working very hard.
They are. Did you have a comment, Councilman?
No, I was just looking at this, so we're booting those basically for registration, late registration and no city stickers?
Correct.
Is that what we're doing? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, that's wonderful. I know they are working
Yeah,
hard
because I
on
didn't
that.
know, because people had asked, and I said, I would think it'd be registration.
So some of them were capturing the ones that have are using 2 or 3 vehicles per residence, and
Right.
so they keep getting ticketed, and now they're being booted because they can't renew them with a city permit, or maybe for insurance reasons, the state registration is expired and they can't get it, so they're,
That's
Sounds like we need to buy more boots.
Okay. Thank you, Denise. Oral communications, this is an opportunity for people in the community to speak on an item that's not on the agenda. You will be limited to 3 minutes, and no action will be taken.
Hello, I'm Judy Greer, 355 Descanso Avenue, and I'm talking for the Friends of the Library. First of all, I want to thank everybody involved in getting the exterior of the library finished. It is done. It looks beautiful. And now, of course, since they've seen the exterior, when they came over, they saw the interior, which is what you heard now, that they are thinking of redoing the interior of our library. It's been 50 years, so we're very excited. So anything you can do to support that, we would love it. And we want to thank Don Kanabe, first of all, because he was instrumental in getting it started and working with the Island Company to make the exterior happen. Now, Janice Hahn apparently is interested, and hopefully she is talking with the Island Company again so that the interior can be redone. And we think that's wonderful also to mention that they redid the bathroom outside of the library. It is handicap accessible. It is an open restroom, and nobody knows it's there. So there again is another kind of a good thing. I want to remind you that we have a new librarian, and she's wonderful. If you're not doing anything on Tuesday the 22nd at 7 o'clock, she has a wonderful book club started, and it's a wonderful place to stop in and find out about books and what people are reading and so on. So that's my information.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Other comments?
Evening, Rock Goslin, 318 Whitley. As promised a couple of council meetings ago, I had some of our wine glasses and tumblers tested by a laboratory up in Northern California. And I want to thank David and staff for following up with LA County. David, I'm going to ping you later. I've got some serious rebuttals for some of LA County's letters to you, seeing as it doesn't seem to be the up-and-coming new wave of best practices in the hotel industry, at least by all the hoteliers I can talk to. The short answer is where we tested, what we tested, and the 6 samples that we sent to the laboratory found traces of contaminants. They listed as both dust and or microbes at insignificant levels. Not sterilized, insignificant. As a test, we sent an empty, unopened Ziploc bag that we placed all of our samples into and found detectables in the Ziploc bag. So I wanted to make sure that we covered all of our bases. On that note, though, there were some things that I didn't like seeing, even though the lab told me they were insignificant. We are changing some of the practices at the hotel, but not to the point that would satisfy LA County. And I'll go on record here in public saying I'm not going to follow their mandates at this point. So we've changed our practices. For 4 weeks we've been using a different practice, and we are going to send more samples, and I will distribute that report directly to you guys, and I will forward it to our field person that first wrote us up.
Thank you. Well, that's interesting. Anyone else before we move on? Okay, we'll go to the consent calendar.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Item number 1 is to approve the actions from the July 18, 2017 and August 1st, 2017 regular meetings. Item number 2 is the expenditures submitted for approval. Recommended action is to approve a total expenditure amount of $3,400,000 $996,259.44. Item number 3 is appointment of voting delegate and alternates to the Los Angeles Gateway Region Integrated Regional Water Management Joint Powers Authority Governing Board. The recommendation is to appoint Administrative Analyst Audra McDonald as the city's member with alternates of the Director of Public Works and the City Manager. Item number 4 is approve a stormwater permit Year 4 compliance contract with consultant Olanunu. Recommended action is approve a contract for not to exceed an amount of $51,840 to assist the City of Avalon with compliance with Year 4 requirements of the Small Separate Storm Sewer System MS4 permit.
Mayor and Council, I need to amend item number 1. There's only actions for July 18th. August 1st will be forthcoming. Okay. And if you have any questions on item number 4, the consultant, Daniel Apt, is in the audience.
Okay. Council, what is your pleasure?
I'll make a motion to approve items 1 through 4.
I'll second and abstain from 1 since I wasn't here.
Okay. Comments from the community? Call for the vote.
Uh-oh. 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 Oh, is anyone here? I got it. You got the whole thing? Yeah. I just displayed it. Nothing's lit up.
You want to do it again?
Whoops, wait, sorry.
Nothing.
I hit the on button again. Clear me.
Nothing's lighting up, though.
Nothing, no.
Aye.
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 4 ayes, 1 absent.
Item number 5. This is go ahead.
I don't, Madam Mayor, I don't see Ms. McDonald in the audience. I think she has been ill. So with your indulgence, if I could just go over the item with you. This is a public hearing to receive comment on the city's proposed revision to the Community Development Block Grant funded project to purchase and install a chairlift at the Beacon Hill Senior Apartment Complex and to perform ADA improvements with the City of Avalon. The recommended action is, of course, to open the public hearing, accept comment, close the public hearing, and authorize staff to commence with public bid for the purchase and installation of a chairlift at the Beacon Hill Senior Apartment Complex, and to commence with Americans for Disabilities Act ADA improvements within the City of Avalon to be completed either with workforce account, that is day labor, city crew, or through public bid. The city had previously approved the use of community development block grant funds to design a full elevator at the Beacon Hill Senior Apartment Complex. After some time, the owners decided that a lift would be more appropriate. A lift is substantially less in cost than an elevator. Therefore, there's a savings. A lift is still installed, but the residual money, the remainder money, which is over $100,000, will help the city to meet its needs under ADA to make improvements to our sidewalks and accessibility for people in the community. That's the overview. When it is appropriate, Madam Mayor, if you would open the public hearing and accept public comment.
Mm-hmm. Do we want to chat about this for a second, or you want me to open the hearing first?
Open it.
Open the hearing.
Open the hearing.
Do we have public comment on the lift?
I'm happy to see this.
Yes.
Happy.
Long
Yeah, using this-
overdue.
Long overdue, using this money.
Being that there are no comments, we will close the public hearing. So let me ask you a question. Do you want us to decide whether it's workforce account labor or public bid?
No, ma'am. If you
Oh.
would just direct us to do as appropriate, and of course to keep you advised on what method we used for construction of those facilities.
Perfect. Bob wanted another project, right?
Yes.
It's
Yeah,
a
he
good-
loves his projects.
This is a good project, though.
This is great.
a wonderful, well, they're all good, but, okay, then,
He's directed.
The directed.
as directed, okay?
Bless you.
We have,
Wait,
no, we need a motion.
We need a motion. Are we going to pass?
Should, Ole, you want to move that into a motion, or do you want me to?
I will move staff to direct the authorize the city manager to commence with a public bid for purchase and installation of chairlift at Beacon Hill Seniors Apartment Complex, and authorize the city manager to proceed with ADA and sidewalk safety repairs in an appropriate manner with either workforce or account labor public bid.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Call for the vote.
Yeah, it's still not
Okay,
going.
aye.
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 Both
Aye.
have it.
Okay.
Item number 6.
Item number 6, Madam.
You pulled that one?
Well, actually, if with your indulgence, I'd just like to give you the overview. No action is requested on this because the other proposed stakeholders, not the kind that you barbecue, but the other stakeholders, have not yet acted on this MOU, and we want to be certain that their input is received. This essentially, Mayor and Council, is something that you've had reported to you previously, and we thought we would be ready today for your consideration and approval of a MOU with the United States Bureau of Reclamation, U.S. Department of Interior Bureau of Reclamation. The proposal that the Bureau has come to the city and to Southern California Edison and to the Conservancy to come up with a comprehensive water management plan looking at all sources of water, both in the city, inside the city and in the island, looking at what information is available. Well, let me back up. Let me just say we're talking about rainwater, we're talking about well water, we're talking about reclaimed water, and we're talking about desal, or they will be looking at desal, and see how all of these systems together, integrated together, can create for Avalon and for the island a sustainable and we hope drought-free system. What the Bureau has proposed to do is to, through this memorandum of understanding, is to engage not just the 3 entities that I mentioned, including the city, but also other stakeholders like Los Angeles County, major landowners, other partners, interested parties, in a discussion about what information do we have about water here in Avalon and available on the island. What are our aquifers? How much capacity do we have, and what methodology can be used to ensure, both in the city and outside, a sustainable water source. The advantage of this approach, I think, is that you have a major federal agency that has, in fact, just made a grant to the city of Pasadena for reclaimed water. Once a plan is in place, you've identified what information we have, what information we don't have. We think, I know the director and I believe, that it puts us in a great position as a city and an island to receive additional federal and state resources because of that comprehensive water management plan. And there is a meeting set on the 29th of August where we will host here at City Hall, and the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation will meet and discuss their plan, hear input from Edison, Southern California Edison, and also from our friends at the Conservancy, and from their experts that they're bringing in from Denver and from other parts of the western United States to work with us and collaborate with us on water issues.
Thank you. Okay. Item number 7.
Oh, law enforcement philosophy, yes. Madam, I think it is, in all the years that I've been in city management, I think it's remarkable that the city council wants to have a conversation about the philosophy of the city as a policy body on law enforcement. We are, of course, fortunate to have the assistance of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, and we've historically had them. I can't even remember when they weren't here, but and Captain Hawking and the Sheriff's Department understands that local law enforcement is local. It is not a federal police force. It is not a state police force. They're a local police force that works under state law. And so your desire was, as I understand it, by having this matter on the agenda, is to discuss the philosophy of law enforcement as it relates to the day-to-day operations. Now, obviously, the Sheriff's Department, as with any of us, we have to obey law, the state law, but there's a certain philosophy and approach to law enforcement. And, of course, most importantly, too, or as important, is that we get input from the community about what type of policing that they like to see in our community. And so I commend the City Council for scheduling this item and allowing the public an opportunity to express their opinions, and then you also to express yours.
Yeah, and we're very sorry that Councilmember Sampson's not going to be here. So this might be a discussion that is continued again when he can be here as well, and
Yes, ma'am.
and gathering the information we're gathering today and whatever to continue the conversation. But we're happy to discuss this, and I'm not quite sure how we want to begin the approach. I'm sure all of us have written notes. We have notes written down, so does anybody want to start? I don't know what. Okay, here he is. But at least he needs to be sitting closer.
Yes, ma'am, I'll start for you.
Great, thank you. Good, thank you.
I've been here for 4 months now, and I can tell you that if you know me, and I know the council members do, a lot of the community does, and I'm very in favor of community-oriented policing. And what I mean by that is I want to hear from the community what they want us to focus our attention on. And I do hear from the community. One example is car seats in golf carts. I had some people complain that they've seen young children under the age limit riding in golf carts, either on parents' laps, on the back by themselves, the back facing seat. So the first thing that I did was met with Mr. Jenkins, and he also had received some concerns from the citizens. So in the local newspaper, I published in there what the law was. I also spoke here at a council meeting and told what the law was. And we've stopped people that are in violation. And instead of right away writing them a ticket, we educate them in case they missed the newspaper, in case they missed the council meeting. We educate them and tell them, and they tell us one of a couple things. They didn't realize it. They thought their child was old enough, what have you. Well, the next thing I hear is people are upset with the Sheriff's Department that we aren't writing citations for that. And that's where you have spirit of the law and you have letter of the law. The goal of that car seat law is to keep the children safe. You give them a ticket, if you give them a warning, it doesn't say you have to ticket, it doesn't say you have to give a warning. You just need to keep those children safe. So my question would be, what does the community, what does the council want for something like that that is relatively a minor crime? It's called an infraction. However, it's not minor if one of the children get injured and fall off the cart or what have you. Then it's very serious. So that's just one example. And give you another quick example is dogs on Front Street on Crescent Avenue. We have the law, the municipal code that says you cannot have your dog out on Front Street unless you're going to or from a boat, and we have all those regulations. Well, we see people out there, most of them, not all of them, but most of them are residents of Avalon. And they have their dogs out there, and they're sitting there enjoying their coffee in the morning, and their dog's sitting at their feet right there. And what do? Do we give them a warning and tell them to move on because they aren't pit bulls attacking people? Do we issue them a citation while they're sitting there having their coffee? You're back to spirit of the law, letter of the law. Then it turns out that some of them know. We work very closely with code enforcement and Denise and her group. And the people realize when code enforcement's off, now they bring their dogs out. They realize when the cruise ship's in, the deputies are usually busy or talking to the tourists that coming off the cruise ships and so forth. They bring their dogs out then. Just different times. So another question, do we issue a citation or do we give warnings? And you can keep going up. Obviously, there's some things that the city council has no say-so about, the sheriff's department has no say-so about, such as murder, domestic violence, rape, robbery, all serious crimes. There's no ands, if, or buts on that. But when it comes down to something that's smaller, infractions, how does the city want us to enforce those things? Is it education, where the person now has a car seat? Because I'll tell you, there's a number of people, and I see the same people over and over, that have car seats for their kids. Their kids are strapped in, and it's almost like you want to stop them and give them a little coupon for a burger or something, because they're doing a great job. But occasionally you get the people that don't. And community-oriented policing, something that I would like to start after summer, just because everybody's so busy with the tourist time of year, it's called CAC, Community Advisory Committee. And basically what the Sheriff's Department does is we get approximately 8 to 10 people from the community, and they aren't council members. They are people that live in the community, and we meet one day a month for 1 hour meeting, and we basically tell the community what we've been doing, and we hear from the community what they want us to work on or focus our attention on. And it's very powerful. I mean, to have a law enforcement agency, for them to work very well, they need to be hand in hand with the community. Okay? Law enforcement can't do it by themselves. The community can't do it by themselves. You have to work together. And we've seen across the United States in the past when communities don't work well with law enforcement, and then what do you get? You know, it's a big old, my official term, brouhaha, but it doesn't work well. So I want to make sure in Avalon that we keep that community-oriented philosophy and that we start a CAC group where we divide it up based on jurisdictions that they live, so we don't get everybody on one street. We get somebody up on the hills, we get somebody down in the flats, we get maybe a business owner on Crescent, or what have you. So you have a big variety of people giving us feedback on what they want their law enforcement to look like, because that's what it is. It's your law enforcement and it's the communities. So whatever they want us to work on, that's what we will work on. Does that kind of give you a starting point?
That's very nice. Yeah, very
Okay.
nice. Thank you. Is there anybody from the council want to say anything before we can start, or we can allow the community to speak? Okay, so community comment?
Chuck Martin, 352 Catalina. I guess my job in the town here is to go to the beach almost every day and go downtown at night and sit around. And I can tell you unequivocally, I never see the sheriffs down there. People run their dogs, I mean, on Front Street, yeah, okay, you can stop that, but people run their dogs on the beach. They pee on the beach. The other night, and this has happened way more than once, people are in groups going down the streets drinking at night, glasses of wine, and you look around, there's no sheriff there. And I think that there's more presence needed. I mean, I know that there's strength in numbers, and I know they don't have a lot of numbers. But I live on Catalina, which is a speedway. There's no signs that tell how fast you should or shouldn't go. There aren't enough signs on the beach for keep your dogs off the beach. And I mean, if they can't be on Front Street, that's fine. That's one of the rules. But in the sand and is, I mean, that's where we have to be. And we've got signs out there on Pebbly Beach Road, 20 miles an hour. Who's watching that? Has anybody ever gotten a speeding ticket in the town? I'll bet not. And the second thing that's, you talk about kids in golf carts, nothing's happened yet, and if it happens, that's really a serious thing. But kids come down our street on bikes and skateboards going 30, and they don't stop at that stop sign over on whatever it is, Beacon. They go right through it. And they come down from school at Five Corners, never stopping, making a big wide turn, and nothing's happened yet. A couple years ago when I was going up Tremont, a bicycle built for two came down, didn't stop at the stop sign. I had to swerve, and they hit the curb, and the girl flew off, and they had to medevac her off. So, I mean, it's like they don't enforce bike rules and skateboard rules and anything, and kids, and then they don't get a citation. You warn them. Well, a kid coming down from the Wrigley Mansion died a few years back because he hit a bump, hit his head, and died. For a few months, kids wore helmets. And this is serious stuff. They don't wear them anymore. They're just out of their mind now. I just personally think, and maybe the captain can answer to it, but I never see. This morning I saw a sheriff when we came down at 10:30 onto the beach. One of the sheriffs was out there. And for the rest of the day, no more sheriffs out there. And people smoke on the beach. You ask them not to smoke. There are signs, a couple of them. I mean, we make signs up for everything. Why can't we have enough signs that say, keep your dogs, at least keep them off the sand? I mean, we have a little white dog that we have a baby carriage for that we go downtown. And I don't know whether that's legal or not, but we do it. He's inside of a carriage. But I think that we need to have more enforcement for sure on kids and on speeding. There's no speeding signs on any of the streets. So if there's no speeding sign, can you enforce it? I don't know. But I know that on Pebbly Beach Road, I go out there and go to the Nickel.
It's time.
Finish your thought, though.
You go into the Nickel, I've had people fly by me. There's no one there to look at it, and I know they can't sit out there full time, but I personally think, and I know a few people today who I said I was going to come and address these problems tonight. They said it really needs it. So maybe the captain can, talk to that.
Thank you, Chuck, for your comment.
I'm trying to, I know.
You challenged there?
I'm trying to reset it for the next speaker.
Yes, I'd like to point out when I talk about community-oriented policing, that is exactly what I'm talking about. That's what we need to hear. Okay, he talks about somebody walking down Front Street with a glass of wine. Should we stop him and give him a citation? It's a misdemeanor. Should we arrest him? That's where the problem is. Regarding the speeding vehicles on Pebbly Beach, the city working with the sheriff's department, or I should say the sheriff's department working with the city posted 20-mile-an-hour speed limit signs out there. I've had deputies out there stopping vehicles, and we are giving them warnings. We did not cite them on purpose because the signs were just posted up there. On some days, it's a staffing issue, 100%. I have one deputy out in the field. That's one deputy. Other days, I have two, sometimes three. Obviously, when I have more deputies, I can have more out on Front Street. When the cruise ships come in, we have a deputy that just works Front Street. But the good thing is I like hearing this so I can make sure I address it with my staff to make sure those issues are solved.
do you know weekly or whatever what your staffing schedule will be?
Yes.
Could we get a copy of that staffing schedule so we could know daytime and nighttime what and who is out there?
Sure.
Not who, but how many are out there?
Yes, sure.
Okay, that might be helpful to, and you know.
Obviously, ma'am, I wouldn't want to put that out to the public.
No, it's just
but
city.
for city personnel,
We know where all
100%.
three are at any given moment. Here we go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
I
But
think
for the city, yes,
that
ma'am.
would be helpful. And I mean, at minimum, I understand. We like people to have a good time in Avalon. This isn't Louisiana. This isn't New Orleans. Sadly, sometimes, but at minimum, it should be pour it out and be warned. Be warned and pour it out. Then they're going to get to know that it's not allowed. I mean, I don't think you need to book them, Dano, on little stuff like that, but I do think you need to tell them it's not okay, just like it's not okay to have your dog on Front Street, it's not okay to smoke on the beach, it's not okay to pee on the beach. But it seems like when we talked early on, and I know with the past captain, they kept a record of their warnings. Mm-hmm. And so y'all know who the culprits are, the repeat offenders. And I think there needs to, at a point, there is a citation issued. I don't know if it's 2 or 3 warnings. As far as I know, the community has been warned for the last 5 years. Mm-hmm. I'm very curious to know how many tickets have been written for these, if you want to call them nuisances. I'd be curious to know, because we know there are repeat offenders. And it's not just a matter of picking on the locals. I'm not saying I want that to happen as well, but I think we know, and there's a point where it just shouldn't be tolerated. And I don't know if you want to set up, or we set up the policy, 2 or 3 warnings. I'm sure your crew gets together and goes, I mean, I'm sure at some point they share their day with the changing of the guards or whatever. It could be Annie's dog is sitting in the middle of Descanso again. This is the 3rd time this week. Well, okay. And that dog's been sitting there for 12 years. So, not quite. But, I mean, there's a point where enough is enough, and in my mind. And I think, okay, the signs have been out there at Pebbly Beach for enough time now. And, the people going to and from work and the golf carts that are passing, okay, maybe they don't realize that you can't pass on a road. And we talked about lining that street at some point. I don't know what we decided.
There is an issue with regard to the pedestrian safety. If we line it, that we might move pedestrians out. That was a concern that I know
Right.
Public Works had expressed to us.
Okay, but I think there's a point where, for those people that probably will be speaking today on a lot of issues, I think they want to see some results. And the only measurable result, if Chuck's going to be down at the beach for the next 20 years, he's going to want to know. And I don't know if it's just even to give those stats to the city manager, so those are reported, that, we gave warnings, and we did end up issuing citations for multiple offenders. And I'm just talking the little stuff. Like you say, the big stuff should be handled already.
Right, I understand. And I can tell you that the deputies do write citations for drinking in public. I've personally seen deputies in the last 2 weeks write them, but I'm to be 100% honest, the numbers are not like on the mainland.
Right,
A
of course.
deputy doesn't take a ticket book that has 35 tickets or whatever it has in it, go out for his 8-hour shift and fill that book up.
Right.
That
right,
doesn't happen
right.
over here.
But I think,
so the numbers are
if I'm staying here for a week on vacation, and every day I basically go like this and go to the beach, and then I'm drinking, and then I'm drinking again. I mean, there's a point where, hey, we've told you once, we told you twice, we want you to have a good time in Avalon, but hey. Now, I mean, if people disagree with me, please do, but I think there's a point where, because you're going to hear from people that are very concerned about the youth drinking in this town, and
Yeah.
anyway, I don't have.
That's why he's here, right?
Yeah.
No, I
Trying to get some
understand
direction.
exactly.
Yeah.
Trying to get some direction,
Right.
and
But I don't know.
it's a hard situation. But sometimes, I feel if there is a ticket written, I think that travels faster than the cell phone sometimes. When you issue a ticket to somebody for having their dog down on Front Street, which is another big issue with the other dogs that you can't, the service dogs and all that you can't do this and you can't do that. But once in a while, if you write a ticket to somebody, that goes around town like wildfire. And sometimes people get the message that way. It's unfortunate that they have to do it that way, but then there's abuse on the other side of that too. Mm-hmm. So hopefully we can weigh it out where it equals out pretty good. And with the issue of the service dogs and that down on First Street, that seems to be kind of I don't know what we could do about that. I don't know if there was a thing we could put in our ordinance about it, about Front Street. I know we have something. I know it's for legal. We can't, that would be something for Scott.
Yeah, state law says that we can't regulate service dogs. All we can do is, all the people can do is ask if that's a service dog. It's a yes or no. And then if they answer yes, then you can ask them if that dog is specifically trained for the service that it's needed. And if they say yes, that's it. You can't require paperwork. It's state law.
So if somebody wrote a ticket, even though they said it was a service dog, and then you need to go to court and prove it's a service dog, and we'll tear up the ticket. Would that slow any of that down? I know there's a lot of abuse with the service dogs. I know it's a touchy situation. Would that be a possibility? I'm just asking. I don't know.
I wouldn't recommend it because then they'd say that you gave me a ticket when I followed directions of state law.
Right. But I just want to add to your favor of what you're saying. A lot of the issue with the service dogs isn't that it's a service dog, it's that it's a therapy dog. Correct. And there's a very big difference between a service dog and a therapy dog. And most hoteliers on this island will tell you they deal with this on a daily basis where, somebody will come in with a pet, it's a pet property, and they go through the whole shenanigans of it's a service dog when in fact it's an emotional support dog. Right. So, the one side of the conversation is, well, every animal is a therapy animal that you love and you cherish and it's part of your family. And then the other smaller group over here says, I absolutely have to have this in order for me to feel okay. Right. So that's what makes, I think, a lot of the dogs on Front Street, or the service animal, that true service animals are almost always recognizable. Yeah. But there is a difference between service and therapy.
So what do you do at the hotel?
Every situation is unique. You can ask the very basic question, as the city attorney alluded to. But most of the time we end up, if the owner leaves the animal in the room, we know full well, and we take steps accordingly. But in most cases, we try to talk to any guest before they arrive, letting them know policies, procedures, all that. So we don't experience it as much, but in general, a hotelier every single night on this island is handling some sort of situation.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, don't get me wrong. I have a dog myself. I'm an animal lover. Yeah. I'm just trying to figure this out. I mean, where does this stop? I mean, you get them on the boat. They have muzzles. They don't have muzzles. I'm allergic now, so I'm allergic to a dog, and they have me sit next to a dog because the boat's full. So where are my rights? I can't, where does it stop? I don't know. I'm just asking. I mean, I like animals, so where does it go? That's just my question.
Yeah, yes, sir. And I can tell you firsthand experience. I see somebody walking a dog down Front Street. I stop him. I say, sir, you can't have your dog out here. And he goes, oh, it's a service dog. I said, okay. I look to the left. There's a dog that's jumping like a kangaroo, just totally out of control. Mine's a service dog, too. What can I do?
Your hands are tied.
Yeah.
I can't cite them.
Right.
That's throw my arms in there and go,
it's a shame
that's no
do that.
Service dog.
Yeah.
But there was something that you had said about the muzzle, that all dogs repeat.
Including service dogs. There's no exemption of service dogs from
Front
having
Street?
a muzzle. Yes.
For being muzzled. So
Muzzled, they can be on Front Street.
They can be on.
They just can't.
They have to have a muzzle. Is that correct?
Yes. No, and no. It's they can only be on Front Street if they're traveling to another location.
Right.
So your ordinance prohibits all dogs on Front Street, and when they're traveling through Front Street, they have to be muzzled. The exception is service dogs can stay on Front Street, but they still have to be muzzled.
Yeah, you said unless they have something from their, whatever that says this dog cannot
Correct,
have a muzzle.
correct.
Because
Yes.
it's not able to do its job with a muzzle.
Yeah, so we can require service dogs to be muzzled unless that interferes with their, and that's, we're not saying that you can't have the service dog. At that point, then they do have to produce something that says that the dog has to be muzzled.
That's the only way. And I don't know if we want to go, that would be interesting to get some feedback from the community on that one.
Yeah, Jenny.
But-
I
Come
think,
on up. Oh,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
I was going to say, there's a lot of these smaller. I don't want to say they're smaller issues because they're all part of the law here, but a couple of council meetings ago, when I had sort of requested after Annie, you and I had some meetings regarding sheriffs and all of that. We have these smaller things in our that are ordinances, that are things, no dogs on Front Street, no smoking on Front Street. It's a bigger issue for me with the smoking, the marijuana, the cigarette smoking on Front Street than the dogs, for example. But I don't want to lose sight of what some hopes and dreams of what we were going to do as a community, and that is looking at some of these bigger issues in the community. Our youth involvement with drugs and alcohol, our involvement at 2 o'clock in the morning when the bars are closing and we have, significantly intoxicated people walking around, and we have the opportunity for more distress at 2 o'clock in the morning when all the bars are closing. There's, lots of mischievousness happening in town. And then how are we working together as a community with the sheriff's department? What do we want to see as a council? Do we want to, do we want to see our kids, youth in the community being arrested every Friday night? Probably not. But what education are we doing? How are we supporting you? Are we giving you the right direction that we want you to be out there? Is the direction we want you to be out there? We want you to be moving the kids' parties around, that they're not out at the casino drinking, that they're not up at Three Palms, drinking and driving for that matter, that they're not at FNS. Is that what we want to say we want to have happen? And after 2 or 3 times, do you, what's your sort of internal policy? Do you then call the parents in, and help to combat some of this so that we don't grow our youth into, more difficult things. In addition to that, there's the drug problem that we have in town. We're seeing more and more significant incidences with drugs in town. I know, members of the community who have talked to me on a regular basis, and we've sat down and talked about it. What are we doing? How can we as a council get involved in, with choices and with the churches, and how can we help to educate to combat some of the drug use in town? What's happening? We have known dealers in town. What's going on with them? What are the ongoing investigations? I mean, those are real tough issues that I want to see us tackle in this community. And please don't think I'm downplaying the dogs on Front Street, the smoking, because I'm really not. But I want to talk about where the department is, where the patrolling is happening, how often it's happening, because what I hear, and I am rarely out past 10 o'clock, and I'm rarely out walking around down on Front Street late at night. So I'm not seeing it, but I'm hearing from members of the community, I don't see anybody that they're in the sheriff's department or they're, not walking around. On the flip side of that, I see between 9 and 10 o'clock every single night like clockwork, I see a patrolman driving down Lower Terrace Road. So I know what I see and I know what I hear. What do you need from us? Do you need us to tell you we want you to make arrests, we want you to do more educationally focused policing? I mean, if that's helpful.
Yeah, and you make
That's
some
a good
great
start.
Those are some great points, and I can tell you it's going to be in the next newspaper on my sheriff's log. But 2 nights ago, there was a fight at the Chi-Chi Club where a female took a ballpoint pen and stabbed the DJ in the cheek with it. We arrest her. Right after that, there's a guy that is so drunk that he's laying down on Front Street sleeping completely out. And I'm not talking a transient type. He's a partier that's out. So the 2 deputies that I had out that night, one took the girl into custody, the other one takes the other one into custody, and they don't even have time to write their reports because they're going back out being on Front Street. And I understand people say they don't see us out there. And I personally, and not every weekend, I stand out there and I talk to people. And so I know the deputies are out there. I know there has been some complaints in the past that they stay in the station too long when they're doing their paperwork or what have you. I don't think we need like the council's approval or permission to go out and make more arrests. But here's how you make arrests for drugs on the mainland. You see somebody crossing the street illegally, jaywalking, you stop them, you put their hands on the hood, you search them, you see if they're under the influence, then you go into their pockets if they are under the influence, and then you pull out the methamphetamine. I don't see that happening on this island. First time one of my deputies has 5 kids with their hands on the hood of the car and their legs all spread out, stand by. Because people are going to complain about that. Right. Residents are going to complain. Right. Everybody's going to complain. How else do we get the drugs out of their pocket to stop them from using? You are 100% correct.
Yeah.
Education. We go to the schools. We talk to them in the schools. We put it in the newspaper, like anywhere. Right now, we have a 4-week class going on. It's just ending next Wednesday or tomorrow. This Wednesday is the last day of the 4-week class. We had 8 students from the school come and participate. We taught them nutrition, physical fitness, anti-drugs. That was something that we put together. 8 people showed up. Hey, I don't care if 1 person shows up. If it works, fantastic.
Right. Tomorrow's
the 4th day, and we're going to be taking them, the physical fitness part, to the new park, the park over by Descanso Beach that they built.
Oh, that's
right.
Right.
What's it called? I'm sorry. The
Venture.
Yeah, Venture, aerial adventure. That's going to be part of that. So we're doing things to try to keep them off the drugs, to try to educate them. But are you going to be able to do that with everybody?
Well, why couldn't you say, come with me, we're going to go to the station and call your parents? Instead of, don't have to put the hands up on the cart, but why can't you just walk them to the station and call the parents?
And we can, as long as we have probable cause to arrest them. We can detain them with reasonable suspicion, and we can do that out in the field, but the detention has to be for a relatively short amount of time. But to get them into the station, we'd have to have probable cause, which we could have probable cause depending on the circumstances. Curfew, that's one right there if they're under 18 and they're violation of curfew. But then,
Well, one of the, and I'm going to be the unpopular person, and I'm going to say this. One of the things that you run into in this community is you have leaders in the community and representatives in the community that are saying, we want you to help us make a better community, okay, which is what we're doing here. You're going to go arrest XY, or not arrest, but you're going to go detain XYZ person tomorrow because they are 13 years old, they are at Three Palms, and they're completely drunk. You're going to detain that 13-year-old. You're going to take them to the station. You're going to call their parents. And you know what? It's going to go viral. How horrible the sheriff's department is, and not my child, and not my brother, and not my sister. And that's hard for someone like myself who is hearing that we want something to happen. I don't want our kids to get arrested. That's not my goal. My goal is to have the education out there that, hey, this is not a safe environment for you to be in. Sure, go out with your friends. It's a safe, island in a safe city to be able to be out by yourselves where you wouldn't be able to on the mainland. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we need to arrest them, but it's part of that education process. And from the extensive conversations that I've had with locals who have in fact grown up here, you know, there was so many different things that worked in the past where, you know, a detective or somebody would go up and pull all the keys for the golf carts at Three Palms, take the keys to the station, and the parents had to come get the keys to go get, you know, that was a good way to get the parents involved in educating their kids that, you know, this probably isn't such a great thing for you to be doing. So it's a struggle because I do hear both sides of it. I hear, you know, I see this long Facebook rant about, you know, the sheriff's department pulled over somebody who went flying through a stop sign on a skateboard, didn't even care, pitch black out. And I'm thinking, all they did was educate you, and you're complaining about the fact that this person did something illegal and got stopped and was educated about what they should have done. And, you know, it kind of goes out there. And that makes this position for myself and possibly the others, it makes it a difficult position to be in because we want to have a safe community. We don't want to have, you know, methamphetamines in the community. We don't want to have heroin in our community. I haven't heard from a single person who's ever come to me saying, sure, let there be meth in the community. Let there be heroin.
Of course.
You know? So, you know, yeah, we're going to have mischievous kids. That's going to happen, but it's the education. You know, I mean, maybe, and I know you can't put a lot of stuff in the paper. You can't share a lot of things that you guys are working on because cases are still open. Mm-hmm. So that is another area that's hard for leadership in the community to explain is what, you know, what we are doing.
Mayor, may I
Yes.
just offer on the concept of education? The U.S. Department of Justice has grants that they give. One of those grants are for intervention programs, for education programs, for school resource officers. They're called SROs, and they're used in various communities, different ways depending upon the nature of the community. But I think what I hear from the council member is if and it's paid for over, I think it's a 3-year grant. It's paid for up to, I believe it's $120,000 that they give to a community. And you can actually create time for law enforcement to be in a school, not to arrest people, but to help educate. Someone they can go to, someone who can help with the education programs. It might be something you might want the department and us to take a look at.
I think it would be great if we could do that. We did have that. Officer Cordero was an SRO in our schools, and he was fabulous.
And I can tell you right now, the Sheriff's Department is working. We have a thing called YAL, Youth Activity League. And the Youth Activity League, the department is revamping the whole thing. And from the first day I got here, I asked for a YAL deputy, and the department's still working on it for all the stations. So that's my goal, hoping. Even, and this is just rumors, that some of the NFL teams that are coming to Southern California recently are going to donate money to some of those programs. So I'm hoping that happens. One issue that we had with the last grant was there was requirements that you had to have a gang problem, you had to have a drug problem, you had to have all these things, and then the school could apply for the grant to try to solve those issues. The school district felt they did not have that in Avalon, and they wouldn't be able to get the grant, so they did not put in for the grant. That's where the issue was. And I can't argue with them because we don't have a gang problem and we don't have these other issues.
Could I just add on? I know the captain and I have talked about this. The way the U.S. Department of Justice's grants, you can grant to schools, but you can also grant to the city, and the city could then contract with the department, it would seem, if that were something that you would wish us to explore further.
Yes.
And I think
That's a very good point.
And I think the education is fine. However, I could be wrong, but I bet those 8 kids that showed up to that program don't have drug and alcohol problems.
No, they don't.
Okay, so though we're not getting to the kids that have the problems, and I think one of the ways to do that, and I agree wholeheartedly with Cindy, and I think a lot of us do, we need to get the parents involved with their kids. And so if the parents aren't having to be responsible for them, previously there was a captain that says, well, oh God, but those parents, they're really going to be mean and they're going to be mad because they got called off the job. Oh, well,
That's,
be responsible for your children. And if that's the one message, do you know where your children are? That was that old thing. And there's a lot of people don't know where their children are. So, so I think these programs that are reinforcing the good kids is fine. However, we need, because if nothing else is working, law enforcement is the last resort. And at some point, law enforcement needs to get involved. We used to have kids, they would go to marriage. It could even be something informal. They go to marriage and he gives them community service. There's no record, but you got to do community, because we've busted you for curfew 3 times. And I mean, there needs to be a system established that they know what the consequences are. Those consequences are relayed at school, in the assemblies. You go to the churches, you talk to those, you go to where the people are, and you tell them, this is what we're doing. And I don't know how specific we need to be in helping you set that process up. But I mean, I know you've got choices right here, probably wants to speak. There needs to be consequences.
Right.
And education and help, because some of these kids need treatment. But there needs to be a system, and there needs to be a system.
I think you're 100% onto the consequences part of it. That is the piece that's missing. And we had a conversation before you were actually appointed to the position over here in Avalon. And Enrique Dominguez, I apologize if I'm speaking out of turn, but with Choices, Enrique Dominguez, and some other youth leaders in the community, I could go on for hours on this subject, but I'll just give you the brief overview. There's been some talk about, youth mentoring and working directly with the sheriff's department, and it is based on those consequences that you are a third offender for a minor thing, but that getting away with minor things, you're then potentially going to move into more. You could be dodging curfew for 3 times, and then next year you're in petty theft, and then the following year you're in robbery, and so starting it out on the early stages and getting involved and finding a group, whether it's your leadership group, which I think is fabulous, that members of that group become sort of mentors, that so these kids maybe, or whoever, young adults, maybe work with a mentor to do their community service. And during that time, they're learning and having conversations that are different than the conversations they would have been having to get themselves in trouble in the first place. So whether that community service is, participating with ride-alongs with the sheriffs, whether it's, doing trash cleanups with the Rotary Club, whether it's, I don't know, 50 other things. But there's an opportunity to have some service provided into the community that works directly with mentors that are more than willing to volunteer their time and maybe help to set people on a different path. You certainly can't do that with the 30-year-old that's severely drunk in public and lying on a bench, at 2:00 in the morning. That's kind of a different story because they're probably going home tomorrow. But at least in our community, there's so much desire for movement in how do you handle the consequences? Do we want to just write tickets? Well, that doesn't really help us solve and better our community. But the consequences are really important, because if you don't, especially younger adults, these teenagers, if they don't know and understand that there are consequences for their actions, and they're not, because we are such a unique community, we're not having our kids home for dinner every night. We're not doing homework after dinner. We're not, staying in our homes. Our kids are are free to move about the city because it's a safe environment to do so. So we have to think outside of the box, and we have to find a way to better it by having consequences. And unfortunately, that means that we have to do a little more parenting than even, any of us really want to do with others. But I think it's got to be based on some sort of consequence, but the consequences don't have to be severe.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be, thoughtful and deliberate as far as how we can move forward better.
Well, I think this is a very good discussion, and I want to thank the council for bringing it up because I really appreciate it. It gives me some guidance on what to have the deputies work on, and I can tell you, the 4 months I've been here, I know every single one of those deputies. They are hardworking deputies that care about this community. They live here. Yeah. Whether it's 4 days, 7 days a week, whatever it is, they care about this community, and that's where, whether it's the credit should go to them, the blame should come to me. And I will make sure that they're in the right spots.
We've got some, Paula.
Yes. And let me say one more comment, and I promise I'll be quiet for the community. Another thing that I think the council needs to think about, and possibly city staff, if you could participate at some level, it was about maybe 5 or 6 years ago that we added another deputy to the contract. We're now a higher population servicing quite a bit more visitors per year. And I don't want to lose sight of keeping on top of the contract as far as, do we even allow the sheriff's department to have enough for what we need in the community? So however that conversation needs to happen, probably at the city level, for the staff level first. Do we have enough money in our budget? Do we have enough? Is the contract fit for what our community needs are?
Good point. Okay.
And I think that's a very good point. As you know, we've discussed it in other council meetings, the city pays for 5 deputies. How can you, I joke about this, but you can't run a 7-Eleven 24/7 with 5 employees. And they're non-relief employees. What that means is if they go on a vacation, there's nobody to work in their spot. So that's definitely a good point and something that I would be very interested in discussing with the Sheriff's Department and City Council.
Yeah, great.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Paula Patterson, 221 Whitley, and I want to say thank you too, because I think this is a really great discussion. And I had Captain Federal did a open meeting at one point, a coffee clutch or something, and so for me, it was the most enlightening thing ever. So I love this idea of the CAC because it starts with understanding their plight and the plight of the community and what our jobs are. So all of us here as members of this community. So to me, when it comes to keeping people safe, right? That's really what the basic tenet is of a law enforcement agency. So when we have kids that are doing things that are not interesting, I mean, yes, the community needs to get involved, but I also have to say, where do the schools, law enforcement, city council, I mean, are we all to be the parents? And where are the parents? And so when you say, well, we don't really want to cite kids for doing things they're not supposed to be doing because it causes such a, brouhaha, but somewhere the buck stops. Yeah. And I can tell you, when there is an infraction and it does become legal, parents finally they have to pay attention. And it's not fun and it's not pretty, but maybe you're going to save the child's life and maybe you're going to save someone else's life because these kids aren't behaving safely. And it was funny because I took, thank you very much, Dial a Ride to get here today. And I was talking that we were having this conversation and the lady driving, she said, I'm so worried. You know, my kid's out at the casino and I know what's going on out there and I'm so afraid and, you know, I so wish. And I said, well, maybe sometime you can come and talk about that. So I think a CAC is a really good thing. And I love that you're having having this conversation. Then I was going to also say about service dogs. I've been, reading about that, and I'm not going to get too nuts about the dog thing because I'm not really now. But I want to say to you, there's 3 types. There is a service dog that is trained to fulfill a function with someone with a physical disability. Then there is also a psychiatric treatment dog, which I would say that was probably for PTSD. Those are both covered by ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act. But then there's a third one, and Scott, is that state? That is talking about a service dog that is like what they're saying therapy dogs, which is the one that, you can pay nothing to get a thing that says it's a therapy dog. And for all 3 of those, ADA is pretty like, that's it, right? But this third category is there is a little power in that. From the people that are trying to enforce and keep a place safe and clean. Right. So I don't know. I just want to say that. So maybe a little look into that. What's the difference between that state designation about a therapy dog versus those 2 that are covered by ADA? That's big.
Yeah.
And then
Must be a new one.
the other thing I was going to say is, and then I want to say something else. And this is really a little bit like a little backlash. I don't know how people are going to take this or think about it, but this is a cause of mine, and you guys know it, and it's not coming from any kind of profiling aspect, but we have a significant Latino population, and when we talk about rules and regulations in the city or events or nights like tonight that we could have a discussion that includes everyone, if we don't do that and translate it, how do we assimilate the people into our community and make them part of our community? So I'm going to say it again, that things that come out of the city, I believe, should be translated so that everyone can be involved in what is happening here. Because I hear I don't want to see gente echando la culpa to the gente, It's not okay. I don't want to see them getting blamed for what they don't know. That's not fair. So anyway, that's me.
Thank you very much.
Here.
Very well.
Very
good
well
point.
taken.
Hola. I have, by the way, I have a emotional support dog. It's out of every category. But the one thing I could say about that is that it's really hard to keep a muzzle on the entire mole and going out to the pier just because of the heat and the breathing and that sort of things. Yeah. So enough said. And the other question about that I would have is that is the harbor educating the boaters that come off not knowing that they've got to have these muzzles, because then islanders look at the situation and go, we're the only ones, or
I understand that there are... Understand that the Harbor Department has had printed hundreds of advisories to boaters who come into the community. Now, if there's still a problem, we can always do more. But I do. JJ's not here tonight, the acting harbor master, because he got off with his grandchildren because he had to deal with some grandchildren issues. And nothing bad though, but I had to deal with it. So, but I'll make the inquiry about what further education are we doing, because I know when the original incidents happened that you're all familiar with, that and the council said we want to clamp down on this, that there was hundreds, if not more, of advisories to people coming in that they're given, and I will find out from council.
Right. Yeah.
I know that the harbor master, Brian Bray, at the time sent a blast out to all the mooring owners, anybody that was on their email groups, and there's brochures at the harbor master office if anybody comes up there to pay. And I believe that the harbor department is informing people when they see dogs on the boat. So I was looking to see if Kurt's in the audience.
It's a hard thing to police, I'm sure. And no one if you can pick up a 25-pound dog, can you have that one on Front Street? but you can't pick up a 45-pound dog, so you can't. And, you know, some of this isn't real super clear. But on the other hand, you're questioning about real issues about kids and drugs and police problems, etc. I was a substitute teacher for the last couple of years in the high school, and I saw that this is a huge issue, and I felt that it's bigger than the school, it's bigger than choices, it's bigger than the churches, and ultimately it has to fall on parents because they have to ask themselves, why are my kids' friends more important than I am? And I think there's a lot of great books, and there ought to be therapy, and could be parent groups of, you know, like-minded people with the same problems and that are asking those kinds of questions, because I'm not sure if a top-down group of police and, you know, even city council and is, you know, like you said, Annie, they're probably the 8 kids that are perfect, you know, that show up. So, you know, it's a really difficult issue, and I'm not sure anybody's got any great answers, but I know that there are great books out there, and that maybe we should be looking at it.
One of the things that I'm going to throw out there, because we've been discussing, and I know Mayor's been in a few of these meetings too, that it is sort of this bigger circle. And I don't want us to digress on another conversation, but just hear what I'm saying, that we have parents of kids in our community, a significant number of parents that work multiple jobs, that work night jobs, that work in the service industry, because that's where they can make enough money to pay for the crazy rents that we have to pay in this community. And so you've got so many of these parents that are trying to jockey between, you know, mom and dad and kids moving from, you know, this home this night or this home that night so that parents can work. And, you know, you're trying to get kids to school during the day and you're trying to get to your first job. Then you're, you know, doing the quick change, and then you're going to your second job. And, you know, that's one of the concerns in our community, is having affordable housing so that people don't have to work 2 and 3 jobs just to be able to live. And I'm not suggesting that is the answer to the parenting part of it, but I mean, you know, I work with people that's the situation, and it breaks my heart to think that your child is raising themselves or is floating from so many different family members because you're forced to work so you can pay rent. You know, and so
But that's one of those pieces you're talking about.
it's just one of those pieces, yeah. But it's very much, you know, when we are a smaller community, and we have, you know, close to 50 graduates a year, so our classes are smaller, our community is smaller, and we have, especially in the wintertime, which is our school year, we have less of everything available, and people are really struggling. So that's what I love about this idea of it being grassroots, coming from the ground up, that how do we educate? How do we get with parents? How do we create more than one advisory committee? How do we start with the one that's going to handle consequence-based, and then we boost them up with these other organizations or these other groups of leaders that, you know, pick up? I mean, look at what Mike Frisella did with the football team, and, you know, the mentorship that comes from organized sports in the schools, and, you know, different people in the community getting involved in other things. That, to me, is how we help each other in our community. I mean, we can't just, I guess we should expect that parents are the ultimate responsibility, but
well, it's a new era. Unique. Try taking away their cell phones.
Yeah.
You know.
That's outright anarchy. Yeah.
If I could just quickly address, so we don't come back to this on the service dog issue. So a service dog is a dog where someone has a physical need for the dog or a severe emotional, psychiatric need, and those dogs are trained. And federal law says that, we cannot prohibit them. Therapy dogs in California, you can prohibit in public places. So there's no difference between a therapy dog and your pet in public places in California. So we could ban therapy dogs. However, to make it more complex, in certain hospitals, workplaces, or private accommodations like a hotel, there is a separate set of rules for therapy dogs that do allow some protection for therapy dogs. But I'm not going to get into the big. I'd be here forever. But anyway, but we can bar therapy dogs because they're not specifically trained and they're not dealing with the specific ADA condition.
So we just got a bunch of new service dogs.
Okay, come on up, Zella.
Service dogs.
Hi. I think, I'm wondering why we don't have the dog for the sheriff's department that we had here for a while, talking about they can't ask about drugs and so forth. Well, you don't have to ask the dog. The dog smells the drugs. And it was wonderful when we had that dog here. Why do we no longer have that? Is one of the questions I would like to hear.
Well, I guess the question is, though, about bringing it back, because that, even though they never found drugs anytime they took the dogs up there, that is a deterrent.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, it works. To me, it's probably the simplest thing that we could do is have the dog around, and even with people getting off the boats and so forth. They're not going to get off the boats with drugs and so forth if the dogs are there. And all of a sudden it was gone. And nobody seemed to know why it was gone anymore.
Right.
And I think the advisory committee is a good idea because I think it's kind of hard, and I know from my own personal experience, being able to go to the sheriff's department and being seen as a person personally. And I think people are almost afraid to go to the sheriff's department because some of the things that have happened, in our community. And if we have an advisory committee that they could go to even, if someone's having a problem, that maybe they could, be a way to get them into the sheriff's department or even city council, whatever they need.
Right.
And that I would be happy to be one of the people on that advisory committee.
Great.
I work with the seniors, and I tell you, those bicycles and the skateboards are a danger to us.
Yes.
And that's the biggest problem I'm hearing right now, is with those skateboards. They're on the sidewalk even, and they're telling me they have the right to be there, and it just doesn't make sense.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. On the drug issue, I'm also part of, as being with the recreation department here at the city, I'm also part of the advisory board that Choices has put together that's brought the school, the city, the police department all together. I believe that there is more programs now than we've had before in the past. I think we're reaching out to more kids when you see all our city programs that have been growing. But I think without consequences, because everything's there, but partying seems to be a right here in this community, especially for the kids. And when there's not a consequence, a lot of times they don't know they're going down a wrong path because no one has stopped them from doing it. It's something that they've been allowed to do year in, year out, and it's tolerated. Within the community, within the alliance that's been created, one of the big things that we talked about was when the police department, because Officer Federal has said, when we go in and we do cite these kids, the community comes out and they're upset, and so what they're asking is that we support them when they do this to do their job. right? Because they're doing it to save this kid's life, to keep them from going down certain paths. I've seen some really good kids and really good athletic kids who are falling apart because they didn't know, right? They start drinking. They didn't know they had an addiction problem. They do coke once or they do meth once, and then they're addicted. And then they leave our community and they fall apart. Or they don't leave our community because they don't know how to handle themselves at that time. So I think everything's in place. And we can't fully blame the parents, like we said. You know, a lot of them work 2 jobs. A lot of them are uneducated in this. Some of them have parents that are also going through these same issues. So as a community, if we have to be there to protect the kids within our community. So, but I believe one of the first steps, especially for the kids who don't know, is they got to get cited. They got to have to go in and take some of these courses, and so they can be educated, because more than likely they won't get that education on their own. Or you bring somebody in who talks to them, and they're going, "Oh, that guy was messed up. That's not me." But when they realize it's them, then they take those courses. Then you can actually get those outreaches. But it starts, I think, by creating consequences for them. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dave.
Good comments.
Rhonda Kalish, Catalina Choices Council. Thanks for everybody who did come out, and I hope there's a lot of people on TV that's watching what's going on. For us to turn our eyes on apart from what's happening would be a terrible responsibility for us as community members. As Dave has said, we do have, at this point, some really great solution for our upcoming community members, our younger kids. And that's always where we want to be able to look at. As of now, we do have programs and have worked with the police department in the past concerning parenting classes, concerning early intervention programs, concerning if a young person is, my solution to young people being caught with a substance is to bring them in. First of all, when we take the rights of our parents away to not inform them that their child has been drinking or using, we've just taken on a different place for us to stand in. It's not our right to take away our parents' rights. And so by not addressing these things and bringing them in, I'm not saying that anybody needs to be arrested. That's not what Choices is about. What Choices is about is bringing solution to our community. So the way that we had asked for it to be actually work together in the community task force that Dave had talked about is that they would be brought in and that the parents would be brought in and they would be given an option, just like as if they were in trouble cited by the court. They would be given an option to go over town or they could get some help here. And we actually, a week after we put that into a process, that's exactly what happened. Right here at our skate park, you know, there was a situation that happened. Somebody called up. They came out. They didn't arrest them, I'm sorry. They took the 2 young kids, brought them to the station, called their parents in, told them what was happening. One parent said, I don't care, which is, are we surprised? No, I'm not surprised. I'm not going for 100% here. I'm going for the 1 if we can get those. Mm-hmm. The other parent said, oh my gosh, I had no idea. No idea. And just to let you know, most young people or people who are using, parents do not know they're using, statistic-wise, to 1.5 to 2 years after they've been using. And that's only because they've gotten a little sloppy and used to it, because of how it changes them. So, you know, it's like if we aren't actively involved with them as a community, as our law enforcement, you know, there isn't any time I could ask a young person to tell me what they think about the police department, and they will say, what do you mean? They're not afraid. They don't think anything's going to happen. And I'm not saying that mean or to point fingers here. I'm just saying the common mindset of our community children. We have things happening down around us. We've heard about stabbings, we've heard about jumpings, we've heard about all kinds of fights, and still, what are we doing? And so, once again, being able to, consequences are something that happen. And I know that even in my position, there's a lot of things that I suffer consequences for, and one of them is that parent that doesn't like it. And the best thing that I could say for them is I'm doing my job. I'm doing my job. And I know for a fact that by doing my job, I'm helping one, here that parent is upset, and there's 6 here who literally are able to get their kids back. So what do? My job is to be able to stand in what I do. And if, I know as the new marijuana laws came out, people actually think that it's legal. And it is, but it also has consequences. First of all, you have to be 21, I'm sorry. People don't know that. They think they can just do what they want. Second of all, you can't smoke it in a public place. Do people know that? And that has to be reinforced by somebody being able to say that. I know personally 2 weeks ago, there was somebody that was smoking marijuana right out in front of Vaughn's. And I was like, because I get distressed because of the fact that our kids smell that. You have an open container, they're not smelling that. They're seeing it, but they're not smelling it everywhere. And so I just walked over to him very nicely and said, excuse me, but it is not legal to smoke marijuana in public. You will be cited. And they were like, what? And I said, I just wanted to let you know. And they said, oh, thanks. And they put it out. But the thing is what are we doing personally? For our parenting, we've provided parenting classes. We work with the school to bring parenting classes in here. Right now, we presently are trying to think of a way that parenting classes that can work for our community instead of having the same 6 people show up, which is wonderful. But still, how do we provide for our community what we need to do with the different types of people that we have? And we always do. If Choices will not do anything that does not have it in Spanish. We just won't do it. That's all there is to it. If we don't have that, we won't do it. And so we press into that, having solution for our Hispanic community, Latino community. And so, once again, as far as here, I would love to see this advisory, the community advisory. I think that's a great thing. I know that the community task force will once again be getting together. And the solution that we have, I really feel that, from my eyes, we have a community that is in the process of change right now. There is a new community that's coming up, and both on, our whole community, as mixed as we are, they are starting to stand up and say, I want something different. Because we've heard for so long, hey, well, it worked for me and I'm fine. Well, today, the things that our kids face aren't like what we faced. It will kill them. It will lead them to places. The marijuana is nothing like it used to be that Cheech and Chong used to goof around with. Nothing like it. And we will be seeing that in our future studies that come out. So I say, for me, in Choices, I know that we are actively being involved with the school, and we don't just think, oh, what can we throw in together? We're trying to see what can we do with our whole community. And the consequences that, people need to be able to see, there will always be. When there is a consequence, there will be a person that will say, I don't want that. And then there will be one that goes, I don't care. No. But there are more that don't want that do. But it's always the ones, it seems, that don't care that everybody focuses on. There's a whole bunch of people in our community that want to be able to see change and want to support, our policing and our sheriff's department. And I believe that this is the perfect time of what's beginning to happen. But we do need to see consequences. And we do need to see, what can we do? Provide different avenues for, different situations. But I know one thing is that when you have a group of kids that I had a situation that I gave to a person, and I said, I tell you what, I'll give you five options for what was going on. There was a situation. One was that they weren't going to go to the football game. The other one was that they could go to the football game and I would attend with them. The other one was that they could give me their cell phone for a week on the counter so I could watch it. The other one was that they would have no cell phone. And then the other one was that we could call the police. And I'm very sad to say that it was chosen that they would call the police. And that's exactly what we did, because there's no fear in a lot of things going on. In the generations that are right now at the edge, that could really, we can change it right now, and we can move forward, because we have a lot of great things, in place with everything that everybody's doing. So, thank you.
No, thank you, Rhonda.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Good evening, everybody. I'm board member of Choices, but I'm talking tonight as a parent. I moved here from Italy 5 years ago. I have 3 kids, and I think this community is great. At the first moment, I think it was just an experience for a while, but I'm pretty sure I will spend my life here. I don't want to judge anybody. We have a great problem, a huge problem here in the community is drug and alcohol for our kids. We just need to face this problem and find the right solution. So I just ask everybody to stand up and work together, the city, Choices, police officer, everybody, churches, just stay together, work together, and try to find the right solution, because we need to educate our kids and remind them that smoking pot and drink alcohol is not cool. It is just wrong. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wish to speak? No. Well, we want to thank you, those of you who have come out and spoke. That's wonderful. I think consequences is coming across, at least with this group, coming across kind of loud and clear. And I don't know how to, Captain, moving forward, because I don't know if you've had the opportunity to sit down with Rhonda from Choices yet, and learning, have you?
I actually haven't. I've been on vacation.
No, but okay. But I think getting a better handle on what is operating here, and especially during school year, and as we're getting into summer, the end of summer, and if you want others to work on that, because I think the consequences is a very important thing. I think Cindy agrees with it. Again, we don't want to book them. We don't want to keep them put them in the system if we don't have to. But I think the consequences need to be established and then put out there. And your Choices Advisory Group, and then also the one ongoing that you're talking about, I think is good too, because that's even more of a cross section, like you say, different parts of town and different ages, and all of that is really good. But I don't know if that's enough for today, but we.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of information that's come on. I think Captain's got to look at it and see what's addressable and what's not addressable with the resources he has available to him, and then I think we should continue this to the next one when Joe's back.
Okay.
That's fine.
Good. And maybe next time there'll be even more people out to talk about things and solutions. So I think it was good, and thank you on this issue then. Good.
Thank you.
That's great.
Thank you, Captain Hawking.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, item number 8. Introduce an ordinance modifying Avalon Municipal Code, Title 9, Chapter 7, Article 7, signs.
This is going to seem kind of boring after our last. No, that was all really important. So this is introduce an ordinance. We're finally got around to coming in with a consensus on some changes that we want to make to our sign ordinance. I think you have a red line version and a copy of the staff report. Let me get to that section of the. We tried not to make too many really big changes. So we changed some of the language about lighting. We added some language about signs in the residential zone. We made some changes about blade signs, flag signs. We put in some language about announcement boards and freestanding boards. We also put in some language about being able to put up small placards that would accommodate all of our local events that want to be able to put up posters and placards, and try to just put some guidelines on that. We created some language about temporary signs. So I guess I'm here just if you have any questions or if there's any other changes that you would like to make. And I think, can they make changes tonight without it having to go back to the Planning Commission?
It depends on if the Planning Commission specifically discussed what change they want to make. If the Planning Commission discussed it and rejected it, then they can make change. If it was not discussed at the Planning Commission,
it would have to
then
go
it has
back.
to go back.
Okay. Okay.
We got an email from Greg Freeman. Yep. And the one thing he's talking about is the internally lit signs being within, the code says here 100 feet from residential, and he's suggesting they go back to 300 foot. I think that's probably a good idea. That's
Yeah.
what I think too.
I think the challenge with that was we have commercial uses, we have residential uses in the commercial zone, and you have the commercial zone that's right across the street from residential uses. Like 300 feet to me, that's almost a whole city block. And I don't know how you have that big of a buffer around a business so that it would not have any expected effect on the residential uses, because the residential uses are so close to the commercial. So I think that's why the Planning Commission said 100 feet.
That's why they changed it? That was their logic for it?
Right.
100 feet is 5 lots on the flats.
Right.
And I've seen some ugly signs.
Yep, me too.
Oh, I'm not discounting that.
And it's just, if you're in a residential, if you're right adjacent to a residential, do you need a lit sign?
No.
Is my question. I mean, it's, give the resident a buffer. I mean, we.
Well, I mean, it's ultimately your decision.
But I think that, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
No,
you,
no, go
Amanda,
ahead.
but the particular issue is lighted signs.
Yeah.
Correct.
That one is regarding lighted signs. I'm certainly in favor of extending the lighted signs from 100 to 300 feet.
Okay.
So let me just
And
ask
I
you a
think-
question, throw it out here now. Vons.
Right.
When Vons gets there in that residential district with their
have that big
sign,
lidded sign at
they're not going to
100
be able
feet?
to have a lit sign because it's 300 feet.
There, as I recall,
don't
there's a
think there was
condition
one.
of approval already dealing with their signs. And I don't have that in front of me, but I know that they limited the signs that they could have in that CUP.
And this is internally lit signs. This is not signs that are lit externally. So,
But also, I
Internally
mean,
lit,
they're
not illuminated.
You know, something like Vaughn's doesn't need to have an internally lit sign. That's going to further, further. I mean, what, 3 ways around? Well, I guess not fully, but at least 2 ways around it is a residential area.
Let's talk hypothetically, not about a specific
Oh, sorry. Okay.
property.
Yeah.
Hypothetically, the hotel I'm going to build on that property.
Okay.
You mean the low
Again,
income
the question
housing?
is,
You mean the low income housing?
Yeah.
That hotel?
I'm just, there
we
were,
can change it to 300 feet. Yeah, that was discussed at the planning commission, so it's the council's direction.
there's 2 places where it references the 100 feet, and I'm trying
Day
to.
displays.
Bless you.
Oh. And then with, it may be the same thing, it may not be, the neon signs. That's the same, that's not, is that considered internally lit?
I would think
I
so,
would think
yes.
so. The neon sign?
So the bright,
I would think.
crazy neon, open, closed sign
I would think that
would
be
not
the
be,
lit sign.
okay.
In my opinion, I don't know.
Can stay.
Yeah.
Can stay? No,
Yeah, not the neon.
Okay.
within.
It's a lit sign.
Yeah.
But they're not scintillating, they're not on and off, these are lit
But I-
internally, is
I
that
like
what you're
it. I
saying?
like it.
Yeah.
I'm still not 100 feet. I don't think that's.
You like 100 feet?
Nope.
You like 300
Mhm.
feet?
I like the 300 feet
Okay.
personally, but that's just me.
Well, there seems to be a
And then-
couple of for that, so.
Sorry.
No, it sounds like.
Yeah, that would be good. And then on the menu board, per establishment not to exceed 6 square feet will be permitted, not more than one menu board will, per establishment not to exceed 6 square feet.
Right.
Which I thought was very generous, 6 square feet. But that also, is it a given that if any of that sandwich board sign were to be on city property, it would require an encroachment permit?
Of course.
Okay.
Oh, there it is.
So with that change,
Well, then let me ask one more question.
okay.
So,
Okay, so I just wanted to confirm that the 100 feet, both locations is, the 100 feet is about internally lit or directly lit signs. And so we're going to change both of those to 300. That's the proposal?
No, the internally lit, not the externally lit.
Yeah, the first one is directly lighted signs and internally lighted signs, except in commercial, special commercial, or resort recreation zones that do not face within 100 feet of any residential property shall not be approved.
Bless you.
Can you tell us what page that's on?
There's no,
article
the
of
copy I
signs.
printed
What
out doesn't
section
have,
it's on?
it's section 9-7.703, prohibited signs. So a prohibited sign is any
3G.
directly lighted sign, except as otherwise provided for in this chapter, and internally lighted signs, except in commercial, special commercial, or resort recreation zones.
If you look on your red line version, it's at the bottom of page 1.
Thank you. Oh, I see what, okay. So we are prohibiting directly lighted signs, except in the commercial, special commercial, or resort recreation zones,
And prohibiting internally
that
lit
do
signs.
not
within-
face or front within 100 feet of a residential property. So do we want to change that one to 300 as well? That's a prohibited sign.
I don't read it that way. It says the directly lit signs are legit, but if you have an internally lit sign, it can't be within 100 feet. We want to change the 100 feet to 300 feet.
Okay.
No, this is what's prohibited. We do not allow directly
Correct.
lighted signs.
Correct.
Period.
We do.
Except.
In the commercial.
Except as, boom.
Yeah.
So is it 300 or 100?
300. Well, that's what it is now, right? 300.
Can you give me an example
They want to change it to
where,
correct?
because you're saying you can have a directly lit sign in commercials that do not face, is basically what that says.
And that's why I'm keep rereading it. I'm wondering if it's
'Cause there-
miswritten.
Directly lit
The way
sign.
I'm reading it, that you cannot have a directly lighted sign or an internally lit sign except in the commercial, special commercial, or resort recreation zones,
That doesn't.
and where they do not face, and
Right.
where they're, so you could have it in the commercial, special commercial, resort recreation zone as long as it did not face or front within 100 feet of a residential property.
Well.
Yes.
That's what
There's
I
a-
think that means.
Okay, there's the semicolon there, okay?
Okay.
So that's the critical thing. Directly lighted signs except as otherwise provided in this chapter. So directly lighted signs are prohibited except And I believe there's another section, Amanda, you have to,
97.724B,
okay.
second to the last page.
Well, hell, why can't you write it so that it's understandable?
I didn't. No, it is understandable.
it is not. Look at us.
It's a colon. It's a semicolon.
Oh, excuse
So,
me.
okay,
So
I'm
the-
sorry. I'm
the-
not- okay, no. I'm
So
saying
the exception-
directly lighted signs are not, this is what you currently do not allow directly lighted signs. Except you have and that's not changing.
Yeah.
You have an exception for directly lighted signs, and it's an exception in the code. What the planning commission added was, and they don't want internally lighted signs like neon signs that face residential within 100 feet.
Right.
And we're saying
So they're
300
adding
feet.
that,
And
and
we're
you're
saying
saying you're
300.
adding 300 feet.
Okay.
That's
But
fine.
what's the other 300 feet?
There's the prohibited sign section that talks about illuminated signs in front of residential property, and then there's language in the sign illumination standards that includes that 100 feet as well. So
That'd be 300.
my understanding is they'll both be 300.
Okay, so if let's say an example. I'm Lourdes's Beauty Shop, and I am the Atwater. We're saying that's got to be 300 feet now?
If it is a internally lit sign, then yes, it would need to be 300 feet from any residential
Does that make
property.
any sense?
No,
Commercial to
right, no,
commercial?
That's commercial.
No. Right now, again, okay. Right now, what the law is, it's in 724. So it's 9-7.724. Internally lighted signs are allowed in the city as long as they're not neon signs. Okay? Because that's what it says. Internal illumination is permitted only if the sign background is opaque and the only portion of the sign that appears as illuminated is the actual lettering and has the trademark. And they're only permitted in a commercial zone, special commercial zone, and resort recreation, but do not face a commercial zone within 300 feet. You want to change that, 100 right now, you want to change that to 300. And it just makes it consistent.
Uniform, yeah.
So,
But I guess commercial to commercial, what's the problem?
There is no commercial, that's fine.
The
Residential.
discussion was at the planning commission that if it's near residential,
Yeah.
if the sign is so bright that it can be seen 300 feet away, if you're closer than 300 feet, that's a really, really bright sign. And that harms the residential nature of the community. So that's why it's been 100 feet. And so if you're raising it to 300, that's fine. But
Entertain a motion?
it's up to you. It's basically
Well,
how.
yeah, I can vote however I want, so it doesn't really matter.
Right. Right.
I mean,
it's basically how lit do you want internal signs to be?
well, internal signs that are on commercial property
Right.
to commercial property, now we've pretty much prohibited those.
No, we haven't prohibited those.
No,
Commercial
you-
to residential.
Yeah.
I know. So if I'm Lourdes's shop and there's a house, the house is down there.
If you're flying boats and you decide that you want to put in an internally lit or a neon sign,
And you're facing
And
commercial.
Residential.
No, I'm sorry.
you're facing residential, which you are,
Okay, then all right, okay.
then that's what we're saying.
Okay, I'm sorry.
With the changes, I will move to introduce and waive all further readings of an ordinance of the City Council, the City of Avalon, modifying the Avalon Municipal Code, Title 9, Chapter 7, Article 7, signs.
Is there a second? So, community, would you like to talk on this?
I have a question, can I ask?
Yes.
In the temporary advertising, so now we're going to allow banners or just signs for 120 days prior to an event?
I think
You know,
it's
Amanda?
called it's called a temporary sign.
Are these the posters or placards?
No, I
No.
think you're talking about in the temporary advertising section? Denise?
Yes.
Temporary signs can be issued for special, let's see. They have this special event. But then it goes on to, find 19, I've got my pages all flopped around, I'm sorry. There's also language about temporary signs in residential zones.
So that doesn't apply then to our banners that go across?
In town?
No.
No.
Thank you. Thanks for the clarification.
No, okay.
Great.
So wait a minute. I can advertise my event at the casino, let's say, for 120 days. That's what this says, right?
Yes.
Right.
Okay, so we've got, first of all, I guess I'm curious, how many locations do we have to hang banners, number one? Because if the museum and the casino and the I mean, and then the outrigger canoe race is coming, and then, so how many banners can we actually put up?
But they just said it wasn't the banners.
This is not about the over-the-street banner guidelines.
Temporary signs in non-residential zones.
This is not about
So-
those banners.
Yeah.
Those are a special permit.
That's a whole, yeah, that's a whole nother permit.
So these are temporary signs that someone may want to put up for a special event, and the longest it can be is 120 days. That doesn't mean it's going to be 120 days, because it's still the city manager or the planning director makes that decision. So depending on the event, they could say, I'll give you 45 days. But the max they can do it is 120.
But it says here, but in no event shall temporary signs be displayed for more than 100 days prior to the civic, patriotic, or special event.
Right. So in no event, the longest it can be is 120, but it can be shortened.
But again, it's talking about civic, patriotic, or special events, which are banners.
That's your definition of banner. It's not the definition here
But-
of banner.
but-
So what is this going to look like? What are these things going to look like, Amanda? Like
This
a
is
what?
like this, for example, this, the first section's in non-residential zones. So
Right.
this would be if someone wants to put up a 4th of July sign on their business, advertising their 4th of July burger special.
The play preschool auction.
And so they want to put up an extra sign for that special event. Then there's,
The art festival.
right. Then there's language about
those are
temporary signs
posters.
in residential zones,
Posters, also known as signs.
which is is to service.
Well, because then they got temporary posters or placards here.
Right, and that question came up, was like, well, what about all those, we have all these events, and we want to support our community events, and they want to put placards and things up in the windows. So they put some language in there that would allow for that type of signage, but to put some restrictions on it so you don't have the little placards and the posters become advertising for the business, that they are kind of limited to promoting other community events.
Let me, so the bigger signs that are not limited by a legal size of paper, 11 by 17.
Right.
Okay? Those you get as a matter of right. You can put it up. You don't need to go to the city to get a permit. Anything larger than that, you have to ask city manager or planning director permission for larger signs.
Right.
And they can
Those
put
are-
it up.
Right.
And they can put restrictions on how big it will be, et cetera. Et cetera.
Right.
And a banner that gets hung by city crew, that's hung between palm trees
Right.
at one of 6 or 7 different locations is a separate permit.
Right.
It's a separate issue.
Okay.
And
And,
then-
And it has a fee attached to it.
Right.
yeah.
And then the last thing we included was we wanted to accommodate temporary signs in the residential zones. And one of the issues came up, about political signs. People have a freedom of speech to promote things on their property. And this would also accommodate, we've had questions about real estate signs. It's a short-term thing, but they want to be able to put up a sign on the property to promote the sale of the property. So we included some language about temporary signs in residential zones in order to accommodate those type of uses and still observe people's freedom of speech.
And what about signs posted on telephone poles? Is that in here?
I think that's illegal. That's
I believe
That's
that
in here
belong to
illegal.
Edison, and that's
Like the yard sale signs and the. all of
Yes.
those. Okay, and what about, I'm sorry, those colorful, pretty banners? like they have in Long Beach. Gay
Like the
Pride
flags?
Parade, aquarium.
Sail flags.
Yeah, we put some language in here about sail flags and banners.
Yep.
The type that you're thinking about promoting the Grand Prix and it's on all of the light
Right.
posts and everything, that again's about the light post.
What's that?
Wine tasting.
The light posts don't belong to us.
I know. Have we asked them, though, because we have telephone poles and we have light posts, have we spoken to them either of those lately to see if that's still prohibited? Because those posts are so ugly that it would do nothing but enhance them. Do you think we
I
could
have
ask
not
those
spoken
questions?
to Edison about them allowing people to put things on their poles. I think the challenge is that's a great place to advertise. Who do you decide who gets to put their stuff up there?
Right away, I would say nonprofits, because I think the museum, for example, when Chihuly comes, look at how beautiful those banners would have been on some of those posts.
Right.
Or,
So I
or
think
the Conservancy does something and it's got the
the
animal.
challenge
We've had
that
delightful
I
fun.
get, the feedback that I get from people
On the way
is
to the
that
mall.
the city should not promote one business over another. And when you have nonprofits that are selling souvenirs, just like our for-profit businesses, and you have nonprofits doing tours, just like our for-profit businesses, and you have nonprofits selling T-shirts, just like our for-profit businesses, and you have nonprofits booking weddings and putting in restaurants, then they're competing directly with our for-profit businesses. How do we support both and
Well,
not offer another edge
Okay,
to the nonprofit business?
I hear exactly what you're saying. However, it's done in another city, so I would suggest that we look at what the ordinance are in other cities and how they work that out.
Right,
Because
yeah,
I think that's important. And I think,
And I think too, Annie, sometimes, I'll share my personal philosophy. When people get off the boat, they belong to us. They're in our town, they're here to enjoy our town, our community, all the things that we offer our visitors and our residents. They're not going to get off the boat and go to San Pedro or go to, Hermosa Beach. They belong to us. So how much advertising do you need to cover up everything else in order to let people know what's here for them to enjoy? They walk from the boat around Crescent Avenue and everything's right there. So maybe there's a way to make it look nicer,
right,
but not just cover everything, every surface with
well, and
information.
it's maybe I kind of disagree with you, and that's okay. However, I think we need to look at ways of kind of beautifying Avalon, and we've done a lot of that through
Yes.
the storefronts and whatever, but I think there's some ugly posts out there, so I don't care what we cover them with. But I think we could look to see if the owners of those poles are amenable to something being done, and maybe take
Maybe
that
it's a public art
conversation.
project.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which we're having that meeting on September 20th. So that's a good point, too. But
So only had a motion.
you had a motion, and let's give it a second. I mean, not give it a second, make a second.
Oh, I'll second it.
Okay. Further comments? Okay.
That button doesn't work.
Aye.
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 Good.
So
Thank
are
you.
we changing it to 300 feet or is it
Yeah.
staying at
Yeah.
100?
300 feet, yeah.
Thank you, Amanda.
Yep, thank you.
Now it's J. Paul's turn. No.
No?
Oral.
No, I'm just.
Report.
Report.
No?
Yes.
No report?
Last time?
Yes.
Oral up.
Yes, there is an oral update. This will be quick. This is good news. It's not anything final, but it's, I think we as a city are making progress. I wanted to report that the city and Housing Authority, of which we are both, and our advisors, Barry and Todd Cottle, we've been working with the Island Company team members on plans for developing affordable housing in Upper Tremont area. And city staff have been discussing the development of workforce housing for the Island Company at Las Casitas, topics of which you were speaking of previously. The two projects are interrelated because of the infrastructure that ties them all together. You have streets, storm drainage, water, sewer facilities, traffic issues that both projects will use and be required because of their proximity to the Five Corners project, which you have a grant for, but which will be impacted by projects, not necessarily in a bad way, just that they'll be impacted. In addition, the Island Company has pledged a new groundwater source to serve the Las Casitas project, with remainder water going into the supply for use inside the city. In addition, the city and Island Company is examining the Las Casitas site currently for co-locating facilities that can serve residential areas and the community. We are talking also about a dog park and other community amenities. The goal is to bring the concept back to the City Council in September. Obviously, all of any defined projects that we bring to you, before you can take any final action, we'll have to go through environmental review. We'll have to look at options, alternatives, and so forth. But what has been, I think, particularly rewarding is the seriousness in which you have expressed the desire to build workforce housing and affordable housing, and the receptiveness of the Island Company to work with us in regard to coming up with a plan that it's what do they say? The devil's always in the details. We haven't found the devil yet, but we know there are details to work out. And I know Paul DeMeyer is here tonight, as a representative of the Island Company. The staffs have been working very well. Our consultants, their consultants, have actively engaging, and we don't want to be in a position of talking about this forever. We want to bring you something soon in concept that can be then evaluated through the environmental process. Ultimately, of course, the desire is to have a development agreement that would memorialize understandings between the city and the company on these issues, and that'll ultimately be your decision.
And no discussion on this item. This is just information.
Did you want to make a comment, Paul?
I
You can't make a comment?
Well, I'm just thinking we don't have a quorum to do so, to actually make comments, because it's Island Company.
Well, that's right. Only two of us here.
Yes.
Well, have a nice day. I guess you can't speak. Sorry,
But it's
Paul.
still-
You can write me a note. Tell me what you were going to say. All right. Anything else? Okie dokie. Meeting adjourned.
Good night, Tony.